Behind a wall of reinforced glass at Yale University sits a manual for a reality that does not exist. It is a 15th century ghost, a collection of vellum and ink that has systematically dismantled the careers of the world's greatest cryptographers. While we struggle to find a single recognizable word or a single terrestrial date, the manuscript remains indifferent, a silent biological anomaly wrapped in an unbreakable cipher. This is not a diary or a collection of poems. It appears to be a set of instructions for surviving in an environment that is fundamentally hostile to human biology. The conflict is not just between the reader and the code, it is between our understanding of history and a physical object that seems to have bypassed the natural evolution of human thought. The danger begins with the terrifying elegance of the script itself. It flows with a cursive hand that suggests the author was writing with the speed and fluency of a native speaker, yet there are no corrections, no crossed-out mistakes, and no hesitations. In any other document from the Renaissance, this would indicate a hoax, but mathematical analysis reveals a more disturbing truth. The text follows Zipf's law, a pattern found in every natural human language, yet it belongs to no known linguistic family on Earth. It is a coherent, complex system of communication that seems to have been born in a vacuum, perfected in a place we cannot map, and then dropped into the middle of the Italian Renaissance. We are looking at a language that was intentionally isolated from the rest of human consciousness. When you turn to the botanical section, the sense of displacement turns into a cold realization. The manuscript contains hundreds of detailed illustrations of plants, yet out of the 126 species depicted, not a single one can be definitively identified as a terrestrial organism. We see roots that resemble intestinal tracts, pulsing with a suggested internal pressure. There are leaves with serrated, metallic edges and flowers with internal structures that look like astronomical gears rather than organic petals. These are not the imaginative doodles of a bored monk, they are technical drawings, complete with cross-sections and root systems that suggest a deep understanding of a specific, albeit foreign, ecology. Some botanists have spent their entire lives trying to map these images to known flora, finding only fragments, a leaf that mimics a fern, a root that looks like ginger, but the combinations are impossible. It is as if someone took the DNA of our world's vegetation and reassembled it into a functional, predatory ecosystem. The theory that this is a survival guide stems from the way these plants are presented. They are not framed as decorative, they are shown alongside vessels, tubes, and chemical baths. The manuscript seems to be explaining how to extract substances from these organisms to sustain life or alter biology. These drawings suggest a physics of the absurd, where the organic and the mechanical have merged. Some illustrations show roots that appear to be mobile, as if they could crawl through the soil in search of specific nutrients. The leaves do not just capture light, they seem designed to filter an atmosphere that is denser or more toxic than our own. The tension deepens in the biological section, where the manuscript depicts dozens of small figures, mostly women, immersed in strange, green fluids. They are interconnected by a complex network of pipes and tubes that look more like biological veins than plumbing. These pipes seem to be carrying a luminescent liquid from one vessel to another, as if the figures are undergoing some form of collective processing. This is where the mystery moves from the theoretical to the visceral. These drawings suggest a civilization where biology and technology are inseparable, where the body is just another vessel to be filled, filtered, or transformed. The expressions on the faces of these figures are not of joy or pain, but of a quiet, clinical resignation. They are part of a system, a biological loop that we simply do not have the context to understand. If this were a medieval prank, the effort required to maintain the linguistic consistency and the sheer volume of unique illustrations would be unprecedented. The parchment has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, a time when such a massive, coordinated hoax would have served no clear purpose. If it was meant to scam a king, the author would have used a language the king could eventually unlock. Instead, the Voynich Manuscript remains silent, passing through the hands of alchemists and emperors, leaving a trail of obsession and madness in its wake. It was a secret that no one was ever supposed to keep, yet no one was ever able to tell. Consider the possibility that this manuscript is a form of botanical colonization. In the world of high-stakes information, the primary weapon is the manual for survival. If a presence from elsewhere needed to provide a roadmap for survivors on a planet like Earth, they would need to document how to utilize local resources or how to cultivate their own. The Voynich Manuscript might not be a book about our world at all. It could be the discarded field notes of an entity trying to survive in an environment that was hostile to its own biology. The conflict lies in our refusal to accept that we are looking at something truly other. Science demands a terrestrial explanation. We want it to be a coded work by a lost philosopher or a botanical diary from a hidden corner of the New World. But every time a new theory is proposed, the manuscript rejects it. The stars in the astronomical section do not match the constellations of the 15th century sky. The pipes in the biological section do not match any known medieval technology. It is a closed system, a bubble of reality trapped in calfskin vellum. There is a psychological weight to this mystery that most people ignore. When a human mind encounters an unbreakable code, it begins to hallucinate patterns. This is known as apophenia. The manuscript has acted as a mirror for centuries, reflecting the fears and desires of those who study it. Alchemists saw the philosopher's stone, Cold War spies saw a Soviet cipher, today, we see alien botany. But the book itself remains indifferent. It sits in the dark, its strange, green ink as vibrant as the day it was applied, waiting for someone to finally understand the instructions. The risk of the Voynich Manuscript is not that we will never solve it, but what will happen if we do. If this is indeed a manual for biological engineering, the knowledge contained within could be catastrophic. We are looking at 240 pages of data that bypasses 500 years of scientific evolution. It is like finding a modern computer manual in a Stone Age cave. The conflict is between our curiosity and our safety. Are we trying to decode a message, or are we trying to unlock a door that was locked for a reason? Every page of the manuscript is a battlefield. On one side, we have the rigorous logic of modern linguistics and high-powered artificial intelligence. On the other, we have a silent, 600-year-old ghost. Recently, AI programs have attempted to force a translation, but when these theories are applied to the whole book, they fall apart into gibberish. The manuscript seems to have a built-in defense mechanism, a way of mimicking language while remaining entirely impenetrable to the human logic of syntax and grammar. It defies the very way our brains are wired to perceive meaning. This brings us back to the drawings of the plants. If the text is the software, the plants are the hardware. Many of them feature exploding seed pods or root systems that seem to be mobile. These are not just plants, they are biomachines. The manuscript describes how to harvest them, how to distill them, and how to use them to interact with the human body in the baths. The women in the drawings do not look like they are bathing for pleasure, they look like they are being incubated. There is a terrifying possibility that the manuscript is not just a book, but a catalyst. Some suggest that the act of reading and understanding the cipher might be the final step in a process we do not yet understand. It could be a set of instructions designed to trigger a biological transformation in the reader, a mind virus encoded in medieval ink. Imagine a traveler from a distant world, stranded in the 1400s, realizing they will never go home. They record everything they know, how to grow food they can actually digest, how to treat their specific ailments with the local flora they've modified, how to track the stars of a home they will never see again. They write it in their own language, using the materials available to them, vellum, gall ink, and pigments. They leave it behind as a monument to their existence, a message in a bottle cast into the ocean of human history. The contradiction is that the book is physically ours, the skin is from European cows, the ink is medieval, but the soul of the book is utterly foreign. This creates a terrifying friction. It suggests that right in the middle of our recorded history, there was an event or a presence that we completely missed. Something was walking among us, documenting a reality that we couldn't see, using a science we still haven't mastered. The manuscript is the only evidence that our timeline might have been intercepted by someone else's. It is often called the most mysterious manuscript in the world, but that title feels too safe. It is more like a biological threat. If the plants in those drawings were ever actually grown, would they harmonize with our world, or would they replace it? The theory of invasive botany suggests that these are species designed for a different atmosphere and a different gravity. The manuscript isn't just a book, it's a seed. And the cipher is the shell that prevents the seed from germinating in the wrong mind. As we move further into the age of computational intelligence, the pressure to solve the Voynich Manuscript is reaching a breaking point. We are using neural networks to simulate millions of linguistic permutations, trying to break the spirit of the author. But what if the author is waiting for us to reach this level of technology? What if the manuscript is a time-locked message, designed to be unreadable until humanity reached a specific point of power? The conflict then becomes a matter of timing. Are we ready for what the manuscript has to say, or are we about to trigger a sequence we cannot stop? There is a theory that someone in the past actually succeeded in building one of these biological machines. Several pages are missing from the manuscript, likely torn out by someone who realized the gravity of the information they contained. Perhaps those missing pages contain the final formula, the key to turning these illustrations into reality. What remains is a fragmented journey through a world of green liquids, star-shaped flowers, and a language that sounds like music but looks like a threat. It is a dark masterpiece of the unknown. We look at it and see a puzzle, but the manuscript looks back at us and sees a species that is still trying to learn how to read the universe. The illustrations of the baths might not be depicting a ritual, but a manufacturing process. The figures are being filtered, their biological essence extracted and redirected through those pulsing green pipes. If you look closely at the ink, it remains as vibrant as the day it was applied, as if the book itself is alive, resisting the decay of time that claims all other medieval documents. The Voynich Manuscript remains a silent witness to our limitations. It challenges our assumption that we are the masters of our own history. It stands as a reminder that there are things in this world, or things that have visited this world, that do not care about our ciphers or our science. The plants in the manuscript do not need our names for them to grow. The stars in its charts do not need our recognition to shine. We are the ones struggling. We are the ones obsessed. And the manuscript? It is simply waiting, its strange botany preserved in the quiet dark of a library vault, until the right survivor comes along to read the manual. Consider the physical reality of the parchment itself. Vellum is made from the skin of animals, a biological canvas that once held life. When the author applied the ink, they were grafting a foreign logic onto the remains of our world. Every page is a hybrid of the terrestrial and the incomprehensible. The way the ink binds to the skin, resisting fading for over 6 centuries, suggests a chemical composition that defies the standard recipes of the 1400s. We analyze the pigments and find minerals in plants, but the way they are combined creates a stability that seems almost unnatural. It is as if the book was designed to outlast the civilization that found it. In the final sections of the manuscript, the astronomical diagrams become increasingly complex. They depict celestial bodies that do not follow the Ptolemaic or Copernican systems. These are not just maps of the stars, they are maps of movement, perhaps trajectories or windows of alignment. If this is a survival guide, these charts may indicate when the environment is most favorable for the plants to thrive, or when the bathers should enter the green fluid. The interconnection between the stars, the flora, and the human figures suggests a unified theory of life that we have yet to discover. We see a universe where biology is dictated by the position of the stars, and technology is grown rather than built. We may think we are the ones studying the book, but in the silence of the Yale vault, it is the book that is waiting for us to finally match its frequency. The question is no longer what the manuscript means, but what it will do to us once we finally understand it. If the cipher is a lock, we must ask ourselves why it was closed so tightly. If the information inside is a manual for a world that does not exist, then by reading it, are we bringing that world into being? The Voynich Manuscript is a silent, pulsing heart in the center of our history, and as we lean in to hear its beat, we might find that the rhythm is not our own. The final conflict is not the decoding of words, but the survival of our own reality against the one described in those 240 pages of green ink and alien dreams.